I'm in right now.
And welcome to another episode of the SD4L show. I'm Justin Thind. I'm here with my co-host, Matt Sheehan. Matt, how are you doing on this fine Thursday night? Sorry, night. There
it's like some day that ends in Y. It's sometime between midnight and noon. I don't know when it is, but quite frankly, I'm doing okay because my feet are dry right now. Roughly 4 hours ago, I would be standing in an inch of water. I was a victim of these devastating flash floods in Oakland County, but you know, we just got to keep paddling, keep rowing. Not to borrow from Minnesota, but yeah, we're swimming out of this little pond that we've built ourselves in the studio. But quite frankly, Justin, who cares about my problems? What about your problems? How are you doing over there? Are you doing okay?
A lot of problems we could talk about this week, Matt. From complaints with a Tailor that I used recently. To that point, if you live in the Macomb County area. And as you see, my lights just went on and off here.
What is going? Are you in a club? What is this, a strobe effect? What's going on over there?
Yeah. Anyway, back to what I was saying. If you live
hold on, you're rich enough to have a Tailor, but you're too poor to pay the electricity bill. What is going on over there?
Here's the thing, man. I don't have a Tailor anymore. That's kind of the gist of the story.
Wow.
So if you are in Macomb County and you need tuxedo rentals or a tuxedo for a wedding that you are standing up in, reach out to me first. Consult with me. I will tell you who not to go to. And the other issue, Matt, the big grievance I have today, I knew the British were going to let me down. I knew England couldn't be trusted.
Here we go again.
5-pick parlay, first 4 legs hit, $100 to win $450, and the British. All they had to do was beat Denmark. All they had to do was beat the Danes.
Yeah,
and they couldn't do it, man.
You know, I did not watch the game, but I was checking the stats. I think at halftime, wasn't the possession something insane, like 82 to 18%? What would an SD4L show be without us just making complaints about the minor inconveniences in our life, which check the box right there for both of us. Mm-hmm. And also talking about just inane gambling stories. We're getting both those cleared out within the first 3 minutes. So don't say we're not efficient with the things that we always do on the show here, Justin. Let's go.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
From the Spirit Airline debacles to my beef with my former Tailor, and now the English national team being at the top of my hate list. Here we are.
Bringing up your Tailor is such a flex, by the way. Just the fact that you even had a Tailor to begin with.
Man, it gets worse than this. So he wasn't my Tailor because I dropped him as my Tailor last November after he messed up like a pea coat. And then the
peacoats over there, my God, wow!
It was just like a simple one from Zara. Well, nothing special. So then, Matt, I'm like, I'm never going back to this guy again. Fast forward a year, my buddy who's getting married, he goes, "Hey, we're all renting tuxedos from this one Tailor, and name redacted for defamation and legal purposes." And he tells me it's that Tailor, and I said, I have a beef with this Tailor. And he said, "But you have a beef with everybody." And I said, "That's not true." And then Matt messed all the tuxedos up. So I've been vindicated. And all right, moving on to this week's official visitors. Someone who is very, very hard to tailor for, Justin Bell. Macomb, Michigan.
What a segue. No. We're not going to let that slide without giving some flowers right there.
I was giving you the chance to say something about that.
Sensational segue on that one right there. Yes.
Justin Bell, 6'8", 288 pounds, Macomb, Michigan, Dakota High School. He is the second Dakota recruit that Michigan State is going after right now. The other is committed to Mari Malone. He is probably going to be a right tackle, or I guess a tackle of any sort. He has room to put on even more weight. because at 6'8", he can definitely handle well into the 300 pounds. So he's an interesting recruit. He was going to visit Kansas this weekend. Instead, he's canceled that visit. He's going to Michigan State. He's formerly taken official visits to Indiana and West Virginia, as the lights have gone on and off here again for the second time today.
This is exciting.
This is unprecedented.
Good luck the rest of the show.
Yeah. So those are kind of the other schools in the mix there. I think Michigan State has a good chance to go ahead and get him to commit to the in-state school here this weekend.
And you know what? Look, we can all look at the rankings, right? Because I believe he's behind 1,000 in the rankings right now. Do I got the right kid in front of me?
Yeah, I think so.
Nevertheless, I mean, outside of the top 800 for Justin Bell. But with Jim Maholchek, there is a rightful leap of faith to take with him. If he likes the way a kid looks in high school, he can sculpt him into a good offensive lineman. And this isn't just hearsay. Oh, hey, this is what people are saying about him. He has shown the proof, and he has shown it recently. He has had 2 offensive line units that are Joe Moore finalists, one of the 12 best offensive lines in the country. Last year, he did it to Lise Fuaga. If I'm saying that name even somewhat correctly, that's a guy, top 15 NFL pick, anchored one of the best offensive lines in the country. He came to Oregon State as a guy ranked outside the top 1,600 kids in the nation. The other tackle of that class, Joshua Gray, he wasn't that great either. He was outside the top 800, the recruiting sites say, but there he was. This guy was a 3-year starter. You want to go back to 2021, Joshua Gray, also a tackle on that line. The other guy, Brandon Kipler, if I have his name correct, he wasn't like a low-rated 3-star, Justin. This kid was a 2-star. This kid was a 2-star out of Idaho, started his career at Hawaii very early on, transferred to Oregon State. That was your other tackle. He gets NFL snaps later on in his career. Like Jim Maholchek, yes, if there is a kid that he likes in high school, I know we just did this with the last offensive line coach. Believe me, I get it that, hey, you idiots over there, you were saying that, hey, that's right, that offensive line coach was a cat's pajamas, but there is proof in this pudding. And Justin, I'm ready to close my eyes and blindly jump into the Jim Maholchek fire, because he has shown that, yes, when he has an eye, he can develop that kid. So 6'8", 288-pound Justin Bell, sure. Yeah, I'll take that. I will take that. Screw it. He's a low-rated 3-star right now. I like that.
Definitely. And yeah, as you said, proof is in the pudding with Coach M, and then not only him, but the Jonathan Smiths and Cole Moores of the world that are signing off on these. They've done it kind of at position groups all across the board. I was kind of just briefly looking at the kids that were 2018 signees who would have been seniors in 2022 when Oregon State beat Oregon. And they were the 80th or 82nd recruiting class in the country, Matt. Most of their recruits, I think outside of their top 4 or so, because they had a 4-star and then they had a couple kids that were in the top 1,000. Most of their recruiting class was outside of the top 1,000. Here in this class, I would assume Justin Bell would move up to an 87 in the 24/7 rankings, and he'd probably be in the top 1,000 after that. But most of their class here this year is going to be inside the top 1,000. Like, even though there's going to be a lot of 3-stars, probably mostly 3-stars, they're going to be kids that are like 87s, 88s. Like this would still be a better recruiting class than like a 20, like a late Mark D'Antonio class. So this is still, the floor is not just like, oh man, they're just recruiting the same level of kids they did at Oregon State, which they did a very good job with and won 10 games with. And this was in a year where they didn't have DJU as a quarterback. And now they're recruiting at a higher level than that. So it's not that they're just recruiting the same kids at Oregon State. They're recruiting better kids, but it's of the same mold. Developmental kids that aren't going to transfer if they're not starting in 2 years, kids that are going to buy in. And because of the relationships they're building, they're not going to leave even when they do become good, because Oregon State wasn't given any NIL, and all those kids were still staying these last 2 years over there. So they're trying to do the same identity, but it's not the same level of 3-stars as when they were at Oregon State.
Yeah, and I got to go back to a chat that we had a little bit ago with the last offensive line coach, Coach Cap. And this is just like lived in my head rent-free when it comes to offensive line recruiting ever since he had the discussion. But it was something along the lines of, there's so much variance in offensive line recruiting for high school because, look, of course you want 5-stars and 4-stars, but what if they don't handle the extra 20 pounds they might have to add, or the different kind of weight they have to add? you see it all the time not translate. Whereas, I mean, there's more diamonds in the rough with 3 stars at offensive line than there is maybe at any other position. Just because, yes, when they do get in that weight program, let's say that the weight translates well, or the way they move isn't too far off from what they were doing in high school, like it would with maybe some other ranked guys. Of course, yes, the 5 stars, the 4 stars, they're great. Perhaps a higher hit rate, but there are also more diamonds in the rough at the 3-star level for offensive line than anywhere else. And I think he laid it up brilliantly when we had that discussion, which seems like 5 years ago at this point. But I mean, look, say what you will about Coach Cap, but I thought that was really well said by him.
Definitely, yeah. That's one of the best direct insights that we could have gotten from someone that actually is evaluating these kids every day, and he put it very succinctly in that episode. So definitely the case. Moving on in the list of recruits that are visiting for the second week in a row, Michigan State's top, ranked recruit visiting in the weekend is a kid committed elsewhere. Last week it was Bobby Kanka, and then the cornerback that was committed to Indiana at the time, but no longer is committed to Indiana, which has no correlation to standing with MSU because MSU is not going to be pursuing him moving forward.
Fascinating though, because that's for sure a kid that okay, on Sunday he decommits from Indiana, and I'm thinking, hey, McCorkle, all right, he's probably, his feet are probably still in the ground and he's Lansing, but it's from you, the Spartans Illustrated folks, it's everyone's saying no, there's actually no correlation. So that was shocking to me on Sunday to hear that.
It seems like he was trying to get too creative with his strategies on all different fronts, and I guess now he doesn't kind of have anyone left with. But at the end of the day, So last week, those 2 guys were the 2 highly rated kids that were visiting, and they were the headliners, and they were committed elsewhere. This week, it's Van Zale Hinton, who is currently committed to Vanderbilt, and he is 6'1.5", 185 pounds, from Paducah, Kentucky, Tillman High School. And he's ranked as a top 50 corner in the entire country per 24/7. So definitely a great kid that you would try to land. And then he visited Vandy last weekend. So that's already out of the way. That was kind of their last attempt over there to try to get him to not take this visit. That didn't work. And he also took one other OV, which was to Memphis back on June 7th. So he's a kid that right away would come in and be one of the better corners that Michigan State's landed here in the last few years. I liked Andrew Brinson a lot last year. I think this kid would definitely be on that plane, if not better. One of the other corners that we're going to talk about, I also think is on that tier or better. But I think if they can go ahead and make this move, that would be a big get for Coach Meat, who he's going to be kind of the thumbnail for this week's episode. He has 2 kids coming up this weekend, so we'll kind of see which of those guys he can land.
Yeah, and with this kid, too, I mean, there are 2 V's that really stick out for Mr. Van Zale. The first one is violence. This kid hits like a heat-seeking missile, and they'll line him up at wide corner. They'll line him up at free safety. But nevertheless, if there's anyone about to get the ball or already has the ball in his area, if you watch his highlight film, it's almost like he's trying to saw the ball carrier in half with his shoulder pads. He just cuts right through them. The other V, velocity. This kid's fast. I mean, he plays a lot on the offensive side of the ball, and they just pop him out for 0 screens all the time where he's on the line of scrimmage, step forward, 2 steps back, I have the ball, and you guys are going to see me 70 yards down the field because I'm quicker than everyone else on this field. So, I mean, there are plenty of things to like about his game, but, I'm watching him on defense. I'm like, my goodness gracious, I see Chuck Brantley in him in the sense that he hits as if he thinks he's a 235-pound linebacker and that he can just absorb all these devastating hits that he's given to these kids. But, very exciting highlight film to watch. I did appreciate watching that.
And he's already much heavier than Charles Brantley, so that's also a plus.
That's the thing. He's already kind of built there, too, at, what would you say, 180, I believe is where he's at?
Yeah, he's listed at 185, but it also doesn't seem like that's necessarily from, this summer or anything. It could be from last season, so... but then again, these high school kids don't fluctuate in weight a ton, so he still could be 185. But either way, that's a good weight right now.
A little more durable.
At the end, that's not our Coach Meat doesn't just have 2 guys; it's 2 additional guys in addition to Van Zale Hinton here. The second of 3 corners that we'll talk about here, Aiden West. He's a 6 foot exactly, 184 pound target from Gaithersburg, Maryland. Goes to Quince Orchard High School. 2 Virginia crystal balls, Matt, but those are from May 21st, so before he took any OVs, but still relatively recent. I guess the insiders felt that they had a big lead, at least as OV started. So he took an OV to West Virginia to start his OV circuit on May 31st. Then he took his second OV, and that was to Virginia on June 7th. So that's where the crystal balls are. They did not get him to commit on the visit, and then he visited Cincinnati on June 15th, and then Wake Forest on June 17th. So it's been a packed June for him. He's taken 4 OVs. Michigan State is his 5th. So I guess we'll see if UVA still kind of has the momentum and just simply he hasn't committed there yet, or if he's more open than it seemed. But Michigan State kind of has an opening there for a second possible cornerback this weekend that could commit. And then, I guess, do you have anything to add there, or should we just jump right to the third big-time cornerback?
I mean, we can jump to the third because I did appreciate this upcoming kid's film too.
Yeah. George Mullins, 6'2". He's listed at 170. It's possible, again, that could have fluctuated or maybe not. Bushnell, Florida, South Sumter High School. Now, he was originally supposed to visit Michigan State on May 31st, but both sides kind of agreed, hey, why don't we just move it to the end? Just make sure you don't commit before that, and then we'll wrap up your OVs at the end of the month, or wrap up your Michigan State OV at the end of the month. That is what they did. He has maintained that OV date, just like he kind of said that he would when he rescheduled to the end of the month. He did that week, that the original week of the MSU visit, May 31st. He did go to Oregon State that week, and then no OVs in the next 2 weekends. And here he is at Michigan State. So you would like to think that Jonathan Smith can simply tell him, hey, we left Oregon State for Michigan State. That tells you that we tangibly believe it is a better situation here without lying or needing to really be a snake oil salesman in any way. And that's a guy that Oregon State was his alma mater. And this is a kid from Florida that has no allegiance to Oregon State or Michigan State. So I guess we'll see if there's any third school circling or anything trying to get him to delay for a July OV or something. But right now, I would say that is shaping up favorably for Michigan State. And kind of when I checked in with him to make sure he was still taking this visit, we'll talk about it, I guess, afterwards if he were to commit one day. But just very enthusiastic to take the visit, I guess we'll say.
I like that too. And I was fascinated too that, I mean, he's kind of in that lower 3-star ranking. And that fascinated me after watching his tape because, look, could it be because he's playing at a lower level in Florida? I believe he's playing 2S football, which is the second or third lowest rung in the classifications for Florida. So, not the biggest schools by any means. Or maybe his numbers aren't popping out as far as 40 time, whatever, because what you see on the highlight tape can't be quantified with numbers. This kid anticipates the ball better than the receivers that he's going up against. It's almost like he's running these routes better than the offense. He will be on a kid, leave his zone because, he knows the ball is going to be thrown over to the next zone. And there it is. Oh, interception. I'm going to run, take this 31 yards to the house. I mean, just his ball skills and the anticipation. That's the biggest word, the A word, anticipation, is what I see incredibly impressive, especially for a high school kid. So I'm loving what I see in George Mullins' game for sure.
Yeah. And there's no surprise that we're liking what we're seeing from these kids, given that Coach Meat is very, very meticulous in what types of players he targets. There's other skill sets as a corner you can have that make you good, but Coach Meat seems to be gravitating a lot towards the players that play fast and kind of, you don't need to teach them how to go after the ball. You said velocity as one of the V's with Hinton in the beginning, and here you're talking about anticipation with Mullins. So seems like just guys that just read and react and just know how to play and play fast. That seems to be the guys that he wants. Coach Meat came in there, immediately tried to refine the entire cornerback room with no regard for kind of any hurt feelings or anything. He just wanted to upgrade it as best as he could and let competition sort himself out. And I think that was one of the coolest parts of this offseason, is just watching him come in and say, hey, I got a job to do. I don't care if one of these kids was hoping that they'd be a starter. They still might be if they win in camp, but my job is to try to find a better player than anybody I have on this roster. And he attacked that with just great kind of fervor. So very impressed with the job that Coach Meat has done this offseason for sure. And just his approach and how he handles his business.
So now, I was just going to bring up,
on
the note of cornerback recruiting too, this is something that happened yesterday. This has to do with the visitor that, kicked off his official visit season in East Lansing. LaRue Zamorano out of California, 4-star corner, I believe on Rivals as well as 24/7 Sports. Greg Biggins, who knows things about things, he's pretty good at his
Yes,
job.
very
Crystal balled
knowledgeable.
him to Washington. So,
Mm.
you don't have to say like, oh, I second that or anything, but do you think the smoke could be potentially blown away from LaRue Zamorano and that a closer eye should be kept on these three corners that are visiting this weekend?
Yeah, I think the best thing that Michigan State had done after that weekend was they had kind of pulled up ahead of UCLA, which was, I was thinking, going to be very hard for them to do. So there was a lot of optimism just from that regard that, wow, if they can kind of overcome UCLA, they can kind of really overcome anyone here. But it seems like Washington ended up kind of pulling ahead here. I don't know necessarily if he's given a verbal to Washington and that's what stemmed the crystal balls or not. I can check in with Greg, but I think there was a lot of optimism early on just because the fact that they tangibly had pulled ahead of in-state UCLA, but I guess that alone wasn't enough to lock it down. But we'll see, I guess. Just how finalized this
Fair
is.
enough. Mm-hmm. Fair enough. So, of course, my famous question I like to ask every week in official visit season. 5 visitors commits by the end of the weekend, you think? Or let's call it Monday at midnight. How about that? Let them get back home, let them talk to their parents, and all that good stuff.
Should we talk about the 5th official visitor before we answer this question?
Did I skip right over him? I skipped. Right? The 13th Orchard Lake St. Mary's kid. We forgot to talk about him. Oh my goodness, Mr. Williams! I am so sorry about that. I am jumping the gun majorly there. I am so sorry, JT.
You are good. And I'll actually call him an athlete. Usually, I anytime a kid's listed as an athlete, I ignore that and I just go ahead and call him whatever position I know the staff wants him at. But in this case, athlete Bryson Williams, who Michigan State is open to him either playing running back or receiver, depending on which way his body kind of develops as his senior year goes on and as his MSU career goes on. Most of his tape is at receiver, but Coach Keith Bonapa thinks that he could possibly play running back at the next level. Coach KV, he has a lot of experience kind of developing and getting these running backs. I think when he was hired, we talked about like 7 guys of his that have played in the NFL. So I'll defer to him. I have never seen Bryson Williams in person yet. So I'll go ahead. I'll definitely hit a couple Orchard Lake St. Mary's games this year with how many guys they have from there. But and then I'll at that point report back if he's committed or if he's a target still and see what I think about his feasibility as a running back. But they think he really can do it. They think that what he has is kind of the elusiveness that translates there. And the vision is something that I guess you would have to see in that regard. But it also could be complementary styles. He doesn't have to be the guy that runs between the tackles. He could be maybe the guy you motion in and kind of use more of his Percy Harvin type of maybe out of the backfield guy that then lines up in the slot a good amount of time. Kind of like what they were thinking of using Cole Cabana as if they would have continued to pursue him back then when they cooled on him, the previous staff. So that seems to kind of be what Bryson Williams is seen as. But again, he could just become a traditional running back. He could just stay as a traditional wide receiver. But yeah, he has Michigan State towards the top of his list. He I'm trying to see. Yes, he has taken an official visit to Harvard, but that was back on April 20th. And then obviously then he's taken the OV to Kansas on June 7th and then Pitt June 13th and then Michigan State this weekend. But yeah, so smart kid got the Harvard offer. So and then 2 developmental programs that the state of Michigan kids have gone to in the past in Pitt and Kansas. So I guess he's seriously considering Harvard, given that he gave them an official visit. And then those other 2 schools, not the easiest to beat, especially Kansas has things rolling. And they landed in-state quarterback last year from Michigan, had him go all the way down to Kansas and some other guys. So we'll see. But I think Michigan State should have the inside track there with 2 of his teammates there. And then one more of his teammates, Antonio Johnson, just touching on him. He was supposed to visit this weekend. He will not be taking any official visits this summer. He didn't take any before this, and he's not able to take this one. It just has some clearance, academic stuff to work out. So Michigan State's just going to keep recruiting him as normal. No status change there. They just don't want to use an OV on him until they kind of know for sure that it's feasible. But yeah, if and when that kind of enters the green zone, I think Michigan State should be in a good spot there. So just waiting until the fall and kind of seeing how things pan out with him. But they're not too worried. It's just right now grades could be better, I guess.
Fair. No, back with Bryson Williams, though. I mean, you talk about Harvard, you talk about how he's book smart. He runs smart, too. I mean, and that's on kickoff return and punt return. Will he be that at Michigan State? Who knows? They got a guy that could very well be a kickoff returner in Charles Taplin, but we could save that for a little bit. The angles that he takes, though, like in the open field, his vision, like that is a kid that does have a good football mind on his shoulders inside the game, too. But just like you said, where's he going to be on the field? Receiver. That's all he seems to be at Orchard Lake St. Mary's. I'm sure they do play him out of the backfield a little bit, but hey, if he's coming with a wide receiver background, that's good ball skills out of the backfield. And at 6'2", 200 pounds, like that's already profiling as the kind of running back that they like in East Lansing. I mean, if you add 10 more pounds of muscle, I'm sure they won't say no about that. But yeah, not too shabby. That would be a nice little 3-pack from St. Mary's here.
Yeah, and with Michigan State taking 3 All-SM kids if they got Bryson Williams, I think there's easily enough of a dynamic there for them to kind of mention to the staff, like, hey, we're thinking it could be a running back in college. Could you kind of give him some looks at running back? And they might not necessarily just move him from wide receiver to running back full time, but who's to say they won't give him like 7-8 carries a game, and suddenly the season ends and you're looking at a sample size of 50 kind of carries for them to refer to. So I think, that shouldn't be much of an issue. They'll know for sure, clarity wise, before signing day, kind of how he could stack up and pan out that way. But kind of their standpoint is we like him either way. So like even if he doesn't kind of translate well to running back, they still like him as a receiver. It's not one of those things where they're like, well, hopefully he's good in one of the 2 spots. It's more so they're confident he'll be good in both. And now that's just which one do they kind of want to favor him into. So that's kind of what we're looking at with this weekend's visitors. And now, Matt, to your original question.
Now we can get to it. Now that we talked about everyone. I lost count after 4 kids. That's how good I am at counting. How about that? You like that?
Yeah, you're lucky. You're lucky to trim down the OV list. Otherwise, who knows how many poor guys you would have just disregarded.
Jesus, yeah, no kidding. You're not wrong.
I guess that's one thing we should touch on. Yeah, so Michigan State canceled a good amount of OVs, and I think 1 or 2 of them might have been the kids canceling. But long story short, they're going to end up being able to land anywhere from 14 to 16 commits after OV season is over, while using less than 30 OVs this month. That hit rate is unbelievable, and now they've given themselves a long runway for using these OVs to fill out the rest of this class all fall. And then you got to use these same OVs for winter portal kids. So I think what they've done here is just fantastic in terms of not wasting really any OVs. And and you kind of saw like with the Tyler Kielmeyer move, right? Like where even when I was talking about it here, I'm like, hey, they like both of these guys equally. They think they're going to get Jaden Savory. If they're wrong, they probably would be okay with just pivoting to somebody else or circling back. Turns out they were not wrong. These guys seem to have a really good feel for how they're going to make decisions of prioritizing one guy over the other. And they've just done a great job of managing their OV count. And seems like they're going to have about 15 plus guys here committed. So it's shaping up well.
No, that's stellar. That's good bookkeeping, good general managing, which has been the theme.
Oops. Sorry.
Run it back. You know what? This whole thing was a rehearsal. Let's just start the whole thing over again. No, I mean, that just sticks with the theme of good bookkeeping, good general managing by not just Jonathan Smith, but the rest of his support staff that he's brought over here. I mean, from top to bottom, whether it's transfer portal, whether it's, swimming in the NIL waters, which, there's been some stories about that out of East Lansing so far this year, or recruiting. Seems structured, and this is just another shining example of that. So here's for organization, if not for nothing else. So far here in Jonathan's short time. Do we want to talk about the 2 commits that we've had since last week? Lake St. Mary's kids.
I'll let you go here. I'll let you go first here since I was going on so many monologues there.
Well, rightfully so. You're the guy with the information. I'm just the carnival barker over here that adds, hey, I've watched some highlight films, and this is what you should like. Jaden Savory, what's not to like about him? Solid pass catcher, of course. Out of they'll line him up at wide out. Sometimes a slot, H-back, tight end. Like he's all over the field at Orchard Lake St. Mary's because that's what you do with a 6'6" kid that has a basketball background, and that's actually what I like about him.
Yeah,
I mean, damn JT. Last year was his first year of high school football. This kid kind of just figuring out the game. He has an athletic background. He's 6'6", 230 pounds. Like there is a ceiling that has been untapped still for this kid. So, hey, look, it's been nothing but 3 stars for this class so far. I know that, you say what you will about that, but there are some kids that truly are this diamond in the rough that have a high ceiling, right? Jaden Savory, one of those kids right there. I don't think that's overstepping or being too much of a homer to say that, hey, this could end up being a kid that has a really damn good career here at Michigan State if he does reach to that full untapped potential as a football player.
Definitely. Yeah, no doubt. Very high ceiling kid. And basically the gist of it is what you said about basketball most of the way. Just recently got into football, already shows such a high ceiling. That's why I was kind of hoping that this is who they would go after and not Tyler Kiermaier back before the June even started. Not that Kiermaier wasn't good. I know they liked him a good amount too, but it just seems like Kiermaier, like this is kind of what he's been doing for years. Like, of course he's going to look a little more refined than Savory. And he didn't look that much more refined despite having way more of time playing tight end. So I was just much more intrigued between that and just the athletic profile. So they got two guys at tight end they really, really wanted. Emmett Bork, I know we didn't talk about him a ton this month, even though we did bring him up in a few different episodes, but he committed back in April. He just, we've talked about this already, but you watch his highlights, he's just going downfield like 30, 40 yards, catching jump balls over people. And they expect that he's going to be a good blocker too, just because of his mindset. He doesn't run through he tries to run through every tackle, not try to go around guys. And he's physical. So I get he's not ranked very highly. I said that I'd rank him a little higher than that. I know they can't rank him too high just because he doesn't have tangible blocking tape, but I think a little higher than that would be good. And then Savory, just very high ceiling kid here for sure.
Am I going to go to more Orchard Lake St. Mary's games, both in football and basketball this year, than I am Michigan State?
There's a big selling point they have that Michigan State doesn't have. The red turf.
Yes, which everyone looks. You could shave a cool half second off everyone's 40 time in that red turf. Yeah. Everyone looks like they are running with their pants on fire on that field. Like that is a sweet setup. The advantage has got to be sky high through the roof. That's just intimidating to step on if you're the other team.
Yeah,
no, I love
their first game this year that I'm going to try to go to. Their first game of the year is against Ben Nichols, the 2026 in-state top 247 recruit that Michigan State is high on. So that'll be interesting. Or sorry, no. I've mixed up. No. Portage Northern. Gregory Patrick, son of Joe Patrick from Michigan State. Yeah. So the state of Michigan has two really good 2026 guys. It's the Michigan State legacy in Patrick. And then Ben Nichols, who, not to be confused with Drew Nichols, who committed to Michigan State in the 2025 class. So, Ben Nichols and Gregory Patrick. Those are the two guys. There we go. Gregory Patrick's Portage Northern School is the one that'll be coming to play at Orchard Lake St. Mary's in week 1 or maybe week 0, however they define it. So that'll be a good game to watch. Yes.
I swear, and I know this is incorrect, but I'm just going to say it anyway. Like, I swear the Michigan high school season starts earlier every single year. Like, I fully expect that game to kick off in about 8 days here. I know it's wrong, but man, it always comes up as a surprise when that season starts. But whether it's football or basketball, because they have a great basketball team. I think they went 34-1 last year. They also got a nice little player over there. I don't know if anyone's heard of him outside of Jaden Savory, of course. But there's some ballers over at Orchard Lake St. Mary's. But I might just become a donor this year. Who's to say? I might just get like an Orchard Lake St. Mary's varsity jacket and become this mega fan. Who knows what I'll do this upcoming fall and winter? But there's quite the pipeline being built right there. Speaking of pipeline, how about the Texas wide receiver to Michigan State pipeline? Why not? Who didn't see that coming? Second year in a row, they've got a Texas receiver. Charles Taplin being this latest guy who, very accomplished track and field guy. We talked about him being a kickoff and punt returner. That was for, not just no reason. That's because he's placed in the top 5 in the 400-meter dash for 5A Texas schools. That's the second highest classification down there in Texas. He's part of the runner-up 5A 4x100-meter relay team. This kid can turn on the burners, as they say. So, if it's not going to be Bryson Williams returning kicks, maybe in 2026 or 27, might I suggest a kid that basically runs a 100-meter dash in a 6.8 time, Charles Taplin.
And the one thing to mention, if you watch Taplin's highlights, his 2024 spring cut up is actually his most impressive yet. And so he's definitely trending up, and very interesting player there. And I guess not much relevance to this specific episode, but since you mentioned him, Jalen Brown, the other Texas receiver that Michigan State got coming onto campus, I believe yesterday or today, he just tweeted, but Matt, he we talked about this in December, but he's one of the more underrated guys that Michigan State got in last year's class. One of the more underrated receivers that Michigan State's gotten. Played at a high level of football. His highlight tape was great. That steal that they had at the end of last year's class was very, very good. I know Brady Pretzloff also at a huge position of need. An in-state kid, he was very exciting as well. But what they did kind of finding and getting Jaylen Brown, that was probably like the most exciting storyline from the December kind of high school recruiting ranks from last year. So every time I hear his name, I just want to go ahead and just drop that in there that I'm a big fan, and we'll see kind of what happens.
Putting us on notice. If Jaylen Brown does well, like you get royalties for every single question. So I just want to put that on the record right now. So
yeah, same with Isaiah Johnson and Jalen Smith for the record.
That's what we're talking about. Exactly.
Yeah.
So how many commits this week, JT? How much do you promise? I don't need a guess from you. I need a promise. What do you got for us? Because again, it's only 5. Just like you said, they're being very efficient with their official visits, but I feel like this could, just like last weekend, have a few, even though obviously the savory didn't come on the heels of his visit. That was still a few weeks later.
Right. That's what I'm wondering.
I mean. You get what I mean. That's the thing. It's like, how quick's the turnaround here? Because like Justin Bell, am I overstepping for thinking like, all right, cancel the Kansas visit, coming to Michigan State. You guys are crystal balling him over there. Rivals is doing their future cast over there on 3, whatever they call their thing. Like they're predicting it. Like, seems like everyone and their grandma is predicting him to come to Michigan State, in-state kid. Like all signs point to maybe a quick commit here.
I would agree. I would say Bell is the one that like is like a pretty sure thing that if he were to commit that it would be soon. And then I would say that possibly George Mullins too, being that they moved it to the end of the month just so that there's not really anything left for him to do. And then the Aiden West thing is the one that's the hardest for me to read just because I don't know what to make of the last month's Virginia crystal balls. Like if they had a massive, massive lead, could that just be erased by one OV to Michigan State? Whereas you would think if someone had such a huge lead, they might have to keep working on him, which shockingly, Matt, this happens still these days, is working on a kid for months and months and it going into the season and not everyone committing just right after OVs. So that's kind of the one where I have like the least kind of feel for what's going to happen. And then like Bryson Williams, like if he commits to Michigan State, I could see it being in like 3 weeks instead of in 4 days because he has a lot of options. He took a lot of OVs. He has to think about, does he want to go the Ivy League route over going to one of these 3 developmental schools? Which one is the best fit for him? So I can see him committing to Michigan State and it's still not being just an immediate one. Hinton, he's probably not going to just right on the spot flip. He's going to have to go back. He's going to have to call. He's going to have to sleep on it just to make sure he's not making a rash decision.
I'll do the call. I should be, that'd be a great consulting service. Like instead of, oh God, what's the movie with George Clooney? It's like Up in the Air, something like that, where he flies around and he gets to fire people. Like you hire me, I call the coach that you're about to upset. I'll decommit for you. It's fine. They can yell at me.
It would be great fun. It would be great fun calling PJ Fleck on behalf of the kid.
My goodness gracious. I can set my phone down in my basement, walk upstairs, and still hear him crystal clear through the floor probably.
And then when he's done yelling at you, anybody that he knows that's an associate of yours will also be getting a call. Anyway, I digress. Man, so I think this weekend you're looking at like Justin Bell, probably as a for sure immediate possibility guy if he were to commit. And then I would say like Aiden West, like most likely not. And then after that, you're kind of at a 50-50 with the other 3 guys there.
Sure.
I think Bryson Williams, Michigan State has greater than a 50% chance to land him, but the timing is what I'm talking about as like 50-50 when to commit this weekend. Mullins maybe a little higher. So I guess I don't know. I don't know the answer, but I'll set the line at 1.5. I don't know whether I'm going over or under, but that's where I'll set the line.
We'll take that. Like just to go back, PJ Fleck gets a lot of like strays on this show. Not a lot of like MSU Minnesota recruiting battles to speak of. Like we do bring him up on this show. I don't regret it. I mean, it's always fun to
it's just because I hear the most direct insight on him than any other coach in the NCAA.
Sure.
So that's kind of why.
Right.
And I always hear new insight like every 2 weeks. So then like he's always just on the tip of my tongue, like because I hear a news story which just lines up with the previous ones. That it's not like anything revolutionary, but him and Pat Narduzzi are cut from very similar cloths. I will say.
There we go, Nard dog. man. Well, hey, we're almost at the end of official visit season.
That is correct.
I'm going to miss it. This was fun.
That's true. This is the most active stretch of the recruiting year. Even signing day, which used to kind of be the most exciting thing these days. You kind of know where everyone's going, and maybe you're hoping for one surprise or something like that, or the drama of somebody leaving your class that you're trying to stay on. But really, nothing compares to June, I would say, when it comes to recruiting for sure.
Yeah. And last thing, two things actually, both basketball. Shout out Xavier Tillman, NBA champion. Good on him to make the Celtics title win somewhat bearable, I guess. And then number two, hey, December 17th, clear your calendars, especially if you're in the Detroit area. Spartans versus Golden Grizzlies at Little Caesars Arena. Love when they do that selfishly because, well, that's just a walk down I-75 for me. So I'm all about it. But, I mean, to be expected, it's a home-and-home thing. They'll never have a game at Arena, unfortunately, which sucks. Like, that'd be a lot of fun. But, like, hey, that's the next best thing if you're going to do this home-and-home thing is Little Caesars Arena. Yeah.
That's a Tuesday, right?
I believe it is. Yeah. I looked really quick. I should have written it down. Ooh, that's a really good question, actually. Dang.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was unique.
I'm not you know what? Yeah. Or maybe, oh God, I think it might have been in 2000. Oh boy, here we go. 2021. Is that when they played at Little Caesars Arena last time? I think they had a score bug that the time on the scoreboard on TV was Type 4 font. You couldn't see anything that was going on. The shot clock was even smaller than that. I think they had an Oakland University broadcasting team doing the game. It was quite the piece of work that we had to watch. Yeah, you talk about just spitballing right now. I couldn't tell you the day or even the year, but I do remember that you had to get the magnifying glass out or take your phone out on the couch and zoom in with your camera and do that like old person hack that they do. Just to see how many seconds are on the shot clock before Rocket Watts hoisted up a 17-footer that most likely found the back iron, but nevertheless. Yeah. I'm blocked. That's by Kentucky Watts, Wildcat Slayer. Kentucky Wildcat Slayer Rocket Watts. I should put respect on his name. No ill will towards Rocket Watts.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm blocked by Rocket Watts on Twitter, so I probably have.
Whoa.
What had happened was, Matt, it was the year after he left, and offense was stagnating a lot. But people may not remember how bad the offense was stagnating when Rocket was here as point guard. Very good shooting guard, not a good point guard at all. And all I said, I replied to somebody's tweet. Andrew Cumbau. Andrew tweeted something along the lines of, as flawed as he was, I wish Rocket was still here. And I said, I don't think Rocket would have been the answer to this offense's problems. That's all I said. No personal insults or anything. Just my assessment of kind of how he would have fit in the office. And couldn't tweet at him to say congratulations on beating Kentucky. I found.
Wow, that's devastating. That's just missing. There's one soft block in my history, and this is we're almost going on 15 years. This is how long I've been on Twitter. This is how long I've been a loser in my life, Justin. But there's a radio personality in Detroit. His name's Pat Caputo. I like him. I had nothing against him whatsoever, even after the story. But this is back in 2010. It's halftime of Michigan State, Michigan. I think MSU's up like a touchdown, let's call it. He tweets out, hey, here's the score at halftime. Give me your thoughts. All I wrote was, Michigan sucks. Those are my thoughts. And I've been blocked by him ever since. Wow,
that's crazy.
Like, not a personal attack whatsoever against him. If anything, I was just fired up about the game so far, and that was enough to get me blocked for the better part of
that's
14
crazy.
Years here. But yeah, on the topic of like questionable soft blocks, that certainly comes to mind. And I was right though. Like, they were not that good that year. We beat them. I didn't get blocked for anything slanderous. I thought it was very in bounds. So
I'm trying to go back and see whether or not I'm still blocked. I just have to confirm. Yes. Okay. Those that don't listen to rap probably don't know, but Joe Budden, former rapper, current day.
Oh, wow.
Big time podcast guy, show.
That's a good pelt to have on your mantle right there. That's a good one.
The funny thing is the day I found out that I was blocked by Joe Budden, because I've never remember tweeting at him. Like, I have no idea why he would block me. I was sitting there at Case Hall eating lunch with Jaron Jackson and a few others. And I clicked on like Budden's @ and I was like, oh, I guess I'm blocked by Joe Budden. And Jaron could not believe it. He was beside himself. And he was like, "You got blocked by Joe Budden?" I'm like, "Yeah, does that really matter?" He's like telling strangers, like, "This dude's blocked by Joe Budden." I'm sitting like, I didn't know it was this big of a deal. He takes out his phone, starts recording me, puts it on Snapchat story. He's like, "This guy's blocked by Joe Budden." And I was like, I mean, I thought he was pretty irrelevant. I knew he used to be a rapper. And then I kind of looked into him, and he's like a huge, like, anytime an album comes, people run to see, like, what does Joe Budden think about the album? Yeah. And I think he's an idiot, frankly, because he has me blocked. But again, I digress.
But you're a big deal to Jaren Jackson Jr. You know what? So that's got to do good.
I was gonna add the tidbit, like when X won the title with the Celtics and how he called Jaren right after on FaceTime. People posted that screenshot. Those two guys' friendship on campus was great to see. Like, as genuine and as cool. Like, not even just like teammates of like, oh, these guys are teammates, so of course they're gonna eat together. But like, Jaren was always playing with X. X just had one kid at the time when he was at Michigan State. Like, Jaren would go over there and babysit and stuff like that. Like, just like the coolest, most genuine friendship you'd see. So it was not surprising to me at all that was one of the first people that X called after he won the title, for sure.
Amazing. That's what I'm talking about. See the Spartan brotherhood, the Spartan family, still alive and well, even if it's got to be Boston winning the national title. Hey, at least it was one of our own. That's okay. That's okay.
Disappointed that Al Horford won a title more than anything.
He
stole checks. He stole so many checks from the Sixers.
Well, yeah. Having a lot of people, though. I'm sorry to bring that. Yeah. No, we don't have to go down Sixers Road. This will be another 90 minutes if we go down 76.
Andrew Bynum.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tobias Harris, future Piston.
I'm not going to do Pistons talk. I don't have it in me. I don't. I do have it in me, actually. Do you give Tom Coors credit for eating $65 million? Because I get he's worth billions of billions. $65 million to anyone is still a lot of money. Or do you not give him credit because, well, damn it, you're the guy that made the mistake in the first place. Like, it's very clear that you had your fingerprints all over getting him here. So I don't know. Like, do you applaud a guy for cleaning up his spilt milk? I don't know.
Yes, I do, because I think one of the biggest reasons the Eagles have been so good for the last 25 years or so is because ownership is willing to pay lump sums of cash to do things like this. If the Eagles wouldn't have gotten rid of kind of Carson Wentz's contract with the biggest dead cap hit in NFL history, who knows where the franchise would have been. Certainly not playing in the Super Bowl just 2 years later and stuff like that. Paying more upfront for coaches to try to attract better talent. Sometimes the guy like Monty Williams isn't that answer, but just things like making Jeff Stoutland the highest paid assistant coach in the NFL. Like, there's things you can do outside of the salary cap that are just the owner willing to spend money that give you a leg up. And frankly, it's one of the reasons the Cowboys have not been very good is Jerry Jones does not kind of on the margins pay with kind of cash out of pocket. So I think like Gore's doing something like this. Like, ideally, like, the GM that he just hired, he better be good. I thought Troy Weaver's resume was better with the Thunder, frankly, and I guess that didn't work out. So who's to really say? You know, I can't say that this guy's better or worse. If I thought Weaver was a good hire for you guys, but I think you got to give ownership credit when they do something like that. Now the thing is now maybe this is where Pistons fans would yell at me and they'd be like, "Look at all the cap space we have. We have another high pick. Who says we can't go and make the playoffs next year?" Maybe you can, but I personally would not have fired Casey. I would have fired him next season, because I think you could have kept a guy that, from all, at least what I've heard, he seems like a great dude from like a culture standpoint, where like even when like morale is low from on the court, like people still like coming into the office, people like coming into the practice and stuff like that. And if you're not winning, I think the biggest thing is like just having a culture where it's like people are still trying in practice. People are not quiet quitting. And then when you're ready to win, you get the guy that actually is going to get you out of it with like tangible coaching skill. And you get to like not just be lighting money on fire for this one extra year. But that argument's not what I'm passionate about. But yeah, that's what I would have said is I think Gores did the right move firing him. You could argue about whether it should have been this year or next year based on how well they could do this year. But at the end of the day, who cares? If he's not the guy, what's 1 year here or there?
No, I mean, one year sample size was enough to know that he's not, in fact, that dude. But, you know, good for Monty Williams. He's living the American dream. He's getting paid like $100 million combined to not work. Like, that's like you thought Charlie Weiss was the buyout godfather. Like, whew, no, does not even hold a candle to what Monty's got over there. But yeah, you're right that you know what. I think it's just because I'm just, so begrudgingly just have hate for Gores. And, like, I still think he's a stooge of an owner. But, like, look, this doing the things of, like, paying to get things done and take care of mistakes, that's, like, back in high school, me turning in extra credit for Spanish. Like, great, I've just turned my grade from an F into a D-. Congratulations. Like, you're still terrible, but we'll give you credit where credit's due. So, yeah, whatever that means. I don't know what you just called me. It could have been very inflammatory or very complimentary. I don't know.
I said "as una lastima." That is a shame.
Sure.
That's the only thing I remember from Spanish class, and I took it for 4 years.
Dude, I took it for 3 years, and I got dumber every year. Imagine that. I'm sure a lot of people are shocked to hear that news. Yeah, just not my forte.
Well, Matt, I will let you go and continue to mop up your basement floor. And I believe that does it for this week's episode of the SD for All show.
Thanks. I was kind of enjoying the break here, but I guess I'm going to try to fashion a sailboat out of popsicle sticks floating around. So I'll report back. I'll report back next show to see how that went.
Sounds like a plan. Appreciate everyone tuning in, and we will see you next week.